legally speaking, it's difficult. I mean, so far, we've been trying very hard to find the dumbest take legally on these things. And most of the people that we've watched talk about it have limitations on how well they can discuss the charges against Trump, especially the ones in New York. Because in some cases they're Trump's lawyers, which means they know nothing about the law, or they're right-wing pundits who desperately, want to forget everything they know about the law that they wanted to use against Hillary Clinton or Bill Clinton or anybody named Clinton, or anyone in Parliament Funkadelic at this point. The one thing that we haven't gotten is an actual felon, and that might be that might help us get a deeper understanding. Ladies and gentlemen, I introduce you to the Mess himself, the Mess D'Souza, and his response is, the title of this is, "We can't take the 34 felony charges against Trump seriously." And by we, I think he means him and Debbie, but we'll find out. Here we go.
Today is the big day. I would even say,
ooh, the big day. No, the big day will be sentencing.
A historic day.
Very historic day.
Trump arraigned in New York City,
a city where he used to reign, ironically, sort of.
Fingerprinted. Apparently, they've dispensed with the idea of doing a mugshot. That's not happening at all.
Right, because there are enough pictures of him, and they decided it's cruel and unusual for the rest of society if there are any more pictures of Donald Trump than the ones we already have.
And the judges also denied media requests to have cameras in the courtroom.
No, video. There were cameras there. That's why there are pictures. But, I mean, maybe you can talk to somebody who's done a documentary or directed something that's used cameras in it. That'll tell you the difference between a still camera and a moving camera. You should be able to find somebody.
For the trial itself. Mm-hmm. But already there have been reports of clashes outside the courthouse, Trump supporters and Trump haters sort of scuffling. So this is...
Yeah, it was kind of, it was more of a cha-cha.
This is shaping up to get ugly. And
that's something I know a lot about.
And also divisive in the worst
way.
I mean, the country, Debbie,
worst way? I don't know. Divisive in the worst way. I'm going to go with racism. That's. And by the way, ladies, sexism comes in a close second, I would say. Largely, I go with racism because there are men and women of all races, and whereas sexism is kind of narrowed to one group or the other in general. So that would be the divisive in the worst possible way, because those are immutable characteristics you can't really get around. It makes it awkward. Now, whereas in theory, this guy could stop being a dumbass one day by choice. I don't know if it's. I mean, he's a bad analogy because he might not be capable of it, but other people.
I was talking about this a moment ago, is already divided in very fundamental ways. This is only going to make that worse. And
well, it's your job, Dinesh. Go for it.
With consequences we may all look back and regret. Now, the reason this is so divisive is not because a public official or even the top public official or even the former president is being accused of a crime. That has happened before. Now, an indictment like this hasn't happened before, but it's happened before in other countries. There are other leaders of countries, countries like Brazil and Pakistan and others I can think of off the top of my head.
And being Indian, he doesn't mean Pakistan as a slam, but just assume that he does.
A president or former president finds themselves facing a trial. It's, of course, not inconceivable that a former president can commit a crime. But when you look at the charges here, or at least the reports of the charges, I haven't seen the indictment sheet itself because what I've seen is the result of leaks leaks coming from Alvin Bragg's office. Now, it's worth taking a moment to realize that leaks themselves are illegal. And not only illegal, they're felonies, they're crimes. So there are crimes being committed by the prosecutor or by his office. Who knows who's doing the leak? Is he doing it? Are there people in his office who are doing it?
Are you leaking? Has anybody checked below the desk?
It's hard for me to believe that they're not occurring, that the leaks are occurring without his consent, because he can stop them. He can find out who's leaking in the office, and he can make sure that doesn't happen. Obviously, he wants this information to...
Or there's an entire grand jury, and people around the folks in the grand jury are just saying, you know what I mean? Like perhaps there's a lot of people involved in this, not just the office.
Get out. And at the same time, we'll find out today the details of this, but they're going to make an appeal to the judge to put some sort of a gag order on Trump. Trump can't speak about it. So then,
this didn't end up happening.
The prosecution gets to leak, and Trump has to stay zipped or stay silent. Trump, by the way, right after the arraignment, is going to fly back to Florida. He has an event in Mar-a-Lago tonight.
Get on with it.
And Debbie and I were invited. And what he's allowed to say. Now, here's an article in Politico. It's titled, "Trump Seems to be the Victim of a Witch Hunt. So what?" Now, let's digest that.
Yes, let's.
The subtitle of the article tells you more. "It's hard to believe prosecutors would bring this case against anyone else, but that doesn't mean they're wrong." Wait, if they wouldn't bring the case against anybody else, why bring it against him?
Because of the egregious nature of it, and it wasn't so much that he committed the crime, but that he hid it, and then after he was warned about hiding it, he did it again. And also, they're uncovering almost weekly more crimes his company was involved in. This is part of a stack. His CFO just went to jail. His own organization lost his
Is it the case that the law, in this case, only applies to him and to no one else? Or if we have equal rights under the law, and this is really the chant of not just the left, but the never-Trumpers. Joe Walsh, whose podcast I went on recently, is like, "Dinesh, you've got to realize no one is above the law. We're all accountable to the law." Well, that is only a meaningful statement if the law is being applied evenly. But if the law is...
Right, and for years it was not. That's the point. For years, Trump has been dodging this shit. Other people have gone to jail for similar charges, and he always managed to be the Teflon Don. And he was proud of that fucking fact. And now it is time, apparently, for him to face the music. And that's the problem these assholes have. That's the biggest issue they have.
Not being applied evenly, then it makes no sense to say no one is above the law, because the law is being selectively deployed against some people and not against others.
Right. It had been selectively deployed against other people for years, and he got selected out. Now he's not. Suck it up, Buttercup.
This was true of my campaign finance violation again. If you look at the letter of the law, yeah, Dinesh exceeded the campaign finance limits. But nobody else who does that is arraigned. No one else is indicted. No one else is...
And that's not true. It happens all the time, especially on local levels. But when it's a bigger case, and when you're nationwide and you're involved in a big egregious case where, you know, we've got something like Citizens United, which allows so much chicanery to go on, and you manage to fuck up that far outside the boundaries, of course they're going to go after you.
Locked up for 8 months. Same with Trump. You've got case after case after case. Congress even had a fund in which they were paying off sexual harassment allegations. And again, it's not clear whether these allegations are true or are they just merely being made against congressmen to ruin their careers. But either way, we know.
Either way, we should try those people in a court of law based on that rumor. Who cares if I was busted for actual receipts and Trump bragged about getting away with this shit? That's not the point. The point is whataboutism.
That it is not uncommon for public figures to settle these cases, to make them go away, whether or not they are true. And the point here in this case is, again, whatever the truth of the matter, and I don't know exactly what it is, the simple fact.
Well, I'm glad we're watching your show then. Terrific. Glad you could really cut to it and give us, insight.
Fact of it is a craziness. It is beyond crazy to accuse Trump in this matter of hush money and Stormy Daniels of, get this, and I'll pick this up in the next segment, 34 felonies.
No, it's actually kind of perfect. If I do say so my damn self. If it was fewer, that would be weird. If there were, if there were 2 charges and they went, oh my God, 2 felonies out of all this shit. But literally everywhere this motherfucker went, he managed to add another criminal count because he couldn't help himself.